Mel Tucker continues to do just about everything right in building the Michigan State football program, completing his second season with the New Year's Six bowl game and his recruiting class for 2022, one of the top 5 in the Big Ten. We got Ryan O'Blennis on the line from The Only Colors on SB Nation to help us break it all down. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you being here. So before we get to the 22 class, Kenneth Walker III, not necessarily unexpectedly, has opted for the NFL draft. In addition to that, he will not be playing in the Peach Bowl, so Michigan State fans will not get to see him one more time in the green and white.
Yeah, obviously that decision makes a lot of sense on his end. You don't want to risk any kind of injury when, he's being projected as probably a day 2 pick right now with a chance to move up maybe even into the first round, after the combine and workouts and things like that. So it's definitely, not ideal for Michigan State fans who wanted to watch Walker play one more time. And, obviously it maybe takes a little bit of luster out of the game if Walker doesn't play and Kenny Pickett doesn't play for Pittsburgh, but it's still, a New Year's Six bowl, and it gives some other guys, like Jordan Simmons, Harold Joyner, Elijah Collins, a chance to carry the ball and show what they can do. I think it'll still be a good game, and, definitely respect his decision. I think, even though he only played one season at Michigan State, he's pretty much a Spartan legend already. And, he's always going to be remembered fondly by MSU fans, for what he did, even from literally his first carry as a Spartan, where he took it 75 yards for a touchdown. A lot of special memories, the 5 touchdowns against Michigan. He's a special player, a very humble kid, very likable. And, I really wish him the best in the NFL. I'm looking forward to watching him in the pros.
1,636 rushing yards, 19 total touchdowns. Kenneth Walker goes on to the NFL draft and prepares for that as Michigan State, his teammates, prepare for Pitt. Before we get there, you mentioned a couple other running backs that we'll see during the Peach Bowl. Does that appear to be the collection of backs that would be vying for the number 1 job in 22?
I expect those guys to all come back unless one of them decides to transfer. But Michigan State also added Jalen Berger, transfer from Wisconsin, who was a 4-star kid in the 2020 class, and who got a lot of playing time for Wisconsin during that shortened 2020 season. So I think that he's definitely going to be coming in looking for the spot, but it's going to be wide open. So guys like Collins, Simmons, Joyner, they can kind of use this Peach Bowl if they are planning to come back to Michigan State next year and kind of use that as a bit of an audition tape. And, they'll have a little leg up on Berger because they've been around the program. Joyner was the guy who transferred in last offseason from Auburn and didn't get a ton of playing time because obviously Walker dominated that. But he's kind of a guy who will be more of like your third down back who can pass, protect, catch the ball. Collins was a guy who his redshirt freshman year in 2019 rushed for almost 1,000 yards, and then injuries caught up to him in 2020. I think he dealt with COVID that year too, and then he was hurt again this year, and Walker was going off, and then Simmons. He's been a guy who has kind of played a decent amount since he came in as a true freshman in 2020. I believe he led the team in rushing that year, even though it wasn't a lot of yardage, and then he's been kind of the primary backup for Walker this year. So, yeah, we're going to see probably a mix of those guys. And then, next year Berger will be in the mix too.
Yeah, the cupboard's not necessarily bare. As you mentioned, Elijah Collins side that had slipped my mind in that 2019 season. So that was a 7-6 season, right? They won a bowl game. Mark D'Antonio's last game against Wake Forest, just 12 yards shy of 1,000. 4.4. We talked about Jalen Berger the last time we had you on. He ran for 5 yards per carry his initial season at Wisconsin. And Simmons second on the team this past year to Kenneth Walker in rushing at 255 on the ground and 4.7 yards per carry. All right, Ryan O'Blennis.
Interestingly, that Pinstripe Bowl game in 2019 against Wake Forest, you mentioned Kenneth Walker was on Wake Forest in that game.
Absolutely, he was. Little did we know at that point. We got Rhino Blendis on the line from the Only Colors, Michigan State football right there, and basketball, of course. So join him and the rest of the crew there on SB Nation. All right, let's get to the recruiting class. Fifth in the Big Ten, number 21 in the nation, according to 247 Sports. And right now, let's see, we've got 22 letters of intent signed. So do you think the deal's just about closed out? Do you think that's the class, or is there another possible one or two there?
Tucker mentioned that he wanted to sign 25 in this class, so it's possible that MSU could still add up to 3 more by actual signing day in February. We'll see how it goes, but just about every kid who was committed signed their letter of intent, so that's a big deal. The only one who didn't was cornerback from Tennessee, Shannon Blair, who decommitted the day before National Signing Day, and it's kind of unclear whether that was his decision or MSU's. I'm not going to speculate because I don't know, but he was the only one in the class who was committed, who didn't end up signing, who opted out the day before. And there were a couple of late ads as well. Malcolm Jones, who decommitted from Virginia Tech the day before signing day, committed to Michigan State. He's a safety out of Georgia, and I believe Mel Tucker said he might play some cornerback to start, actually. So he ended up signing on Wednesday. And then Caleb Coley, also out of Georgia, another cornerback. He's a really high 3-star recruit who's going to enroll early and could challenge for some early playing time. I know a lot of MSU fans were happy to get him. He was a Vanderbilt commit and decommitted from there a little bit ago. And then, as soon as he did that, the crystal balls and speculation started rolling in that he was going to end up signing with Michigan State, and that did happen. And then Zion Young, he was the other late ad who signed on Wednesday, who was, I believe, committed to West Virginia, then decommitted from there. And then similar to Coley, there was a lot of speculation that, Michigan State, he was going to sign there, and he ended up doing that. And then the other kind of surprise that, again, it wasn't a huge surprise because people who were plugged in had known it was a possibility, but Mel Tucker and Michigan State also landed Florida transfer Chris Bogle, defensive end, who was, a really highly touted recruit when he came out, and pretty good pass rusher there at Florida. So that was a big ad as well.
So there are some big ads, as you mentioned, some hits there. There's always going to be a couple big misses. That's just the nature of the game. We had our Kentucky guy on a few hours ago, and at that point, Keonta Goodwin, the offensive tackle, had yet to sign. He was a Kentucky commit. They were confident going into National Signing Day that he was theirs, that he was secure, locked in. But knew that he had gone to Michigan State, knew that Mel Tucker was closing in. And obviously at that point, it wasn't a good sign that he had delayed his signing. But as it turned out, he still went the way of Kentucky.
Yeah, that was an interesting saga that had a lot of Michigan State fans, just crazily checking Twitter every second, seeing what the next move was. I mean, it seemed pretty clear that even Goodwin wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do early on yesterday. As you mentioned, Michigan State got his last official visit, and I think, Mel Tucker and offensive line coach Chris Kapovic really kind of almost, I guess not totally, but, it seemed like they were very close to closing the deal with him and getting him to flip over to Michigan State. I think that he really thought about it hard. He had been committed to Kentucky for a while, and he was taking official visits elsewhere, and Kentucky fans weren't quite sure if he was going to stay. Ultimately, he did. It was an interesting saga for sure, but he ended up, I think, doing what was best for him. He's a 5-star tackle, one of the top 25, I believe, in the country. I think he's going to have a really good career. So, if Kentucky is the place where he thinks that's going to be, then good for him.
Ryan, now that Mel Tucker is wrapped up, close to wrapping up 2 recruiting classes, do you get a feel at all based on what he has said? Also, but just based on the approach or the results in the recruiting classes, him taking a bit of a different approach and path to recruiting than Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting comparisons between the two. It's a little bit different now too, because now you have things like NIL and stuff that D'Antonio didn't have. But Tucker uses social media. He embraces NIL. He's out there connecting with the kids. D'Antonio's recruiting classes, outside of a couple of them, were never really that highly rated. He was more of a guy who found diamonds in the rough and elevated their play, developed them. Even not even getting Goodwin, but having him down as a one of your top 2 finalists for a 5-star and one of the top recruits in the nation. That's a big deal to even just have Michigan State on that kind of radar, because those are the kind of recruits that the Spartans almost never get. And then you got 5 4-stars in this class too, which is one of the highest they've had in the past several years. 4 of those are from right in the state of Michigan. 4 of the top 10 players, with Dylan Tatum, Jaden Mangum, Alex Van Sumeren is the number 1 rated player in the class, the defensive tackle. And then Antonio Gates Jr., Antonio Gates, the NFL tight end son. And then Katin Hauser from St. John Bosco out of California is a very highly touted quarterback recruit who, a lot of Spartan fans are hoping he'll be the future of the program. So, you got those guys. And then Coley, one thing too that Tucker did in this class was he really made Georgia a pipeline. There were 7 different recruits out of that state, more than Michigan, that I believe had 6. So, not only is he winning some of the top talent in state, he's going down south to, where he has some roots from, where he was the defensive coordinator for Georgia and he had relationships there. And, he's going down there with all that talent in the South and winning there. He's getting kids from like Hauser, who's originally from Las Vegas, but played in California. And, there's a couple guys out from Colorado, out from Arizona, out west there, and a couple of Florida kids. I think Tucker called it a national recruiting class because, he's not afraid to go after any of these targets at any state, but he's also not going after, recruiting rankings. He's going after who they identify as the talent that they want, both on the field and scheme fits, but also guys who they think are going to fit into the program's culture. So, there's definitely a lot of differences where I think Tucker's a lot more in the face of these kids and more connecting with them on social media. Like I said, embracing NIL and just kind of going more with the times and just relentlessly recruiting, as he puts it, where, like I said, D'Antonio took kind of a lesser approach than that. He wasn't on social media much, and he didn't go after a lot of big-time targets. And when he did, in the 2016 class was one of Michigan State's highest-rated classes ever. But then that class ended up being a total disaster with a lot of problems and a lot of guys transferring out and stuff like that. So with D'Antonio, it was more of 3-star guys, lower guys who he can develop, which he did a really good job of for the most part. And for Tucker, he's not afraid to go out and get these bigger name kids and make Michigan State a national brand again.
Out of the 22 signed, as you mentioned, 7 in Georgia, 6 out of the state of Michigan, and that's 4 out of the top 9 players in the state of Michigan. So a pretty decent job in keeping those guys away from Michigan. I don't know what the Wolverines count is on that, even though we did a Wolverines segment here today. But I know that Ohio and State, Kentucky, and some other ones, of course, get into Michigan. Everybody's curious about who's going to be the next quarterback, of course, of any big program. And so, as you mentioned, Katin Hauser out of California, pretty highly rated passer, 13th rated in the country at his position, a top 20 player in the state of California. So if you had a chance to look at any of his tape or based on scouting reports, what kind of quarterback he is?
Yeah, it was interesting with Hauser because he actually split time with another quarterback there at St. John Bosco, because they have 2 really highly rated quarterbacks and recruits. I think the other one's name is Clarkson, and he's in the class of 2023. He's going to be a big time recruit for that class too. But with Hauser, I think that, like I said, a lot of MSU fans are hoping he's going to be more of a, kind of the future. You got Hamp Fay on the roster too, who was in last year's class. And Noah Kim, who was the year before that. So, I don't think Hauser is going to be able to come in and just unseat those two on the depth chart. He's going to have to work for it. I'm sure he's going to redshirt. But yeah, with Hauser, he was an Elite 11 finalist quarterback in California, which is, the top rated quarterbacks in the country competing in kind of a camp type setting. And, I think with Hauser, he's got a good arm. He can stand and throw in the pocket. He can move around a little bit. He's going to be, I guess, maybe a little different than what you see with Peyton Thorne now. But I think that the trajectory that Thorne's on, he might end up being one of the better quarterbacks that Michigan State's ever had. So I think if Thorne stays there for 2 more years and Hauser's able to learn under him a little bit, I think that, you're really going to have something special in Hauser, but we'll have to see how it develops.
Ryan O'Blennis, the only colors, talking of Michigan State for us as the Spartans prepare for the Peach Bowl and wrap up this recruiting class for 2022. Ryan, we appreciate you stopping by as always, and hopefully we can get together one more time before the Peach Bowl.